it just makes me laugh that, you're the way that you save your money, the
All
way
right,
you save
here
your
we
money
go.
doing your own hair. But I have to say, you look dashing. I mean,
Thank you.
nobody else would know that, at least looking at the front of you, that you cut your own hair.
It's one of those things we learned through 2020. You can do it yourself. It's not professionally done. It's a little rough around the edges, but my haircut is not very intricate.
Was it Saturday Night Live that did the Hoover haircut, that it was like a haircut and a vacuum cleaner?
I
all
think
on
that
the
was
same?
actually a thing. We'll have to fact
Was it
check
one
that
of
on the
those as
show.
seen on TV,
I
late
believe
night
so.
things? Oh,
Thank you,
shoot. So I
everybody,
didn't imagine
for-
that.
I know.
It
Thank you,
wasn't really
everybody,
a
for
joke.
joining us. This is how we record. This is the thing about live podcasts. I don't think people realize this is how most of our podcasts get
Yeah.
started.
Good morning and welcome to Smart with Your Money Live, and a live episode of Talk Wealth to Me. And so excited to do this live. We haven't done that yet. This is going to be episode 112 or so, and it's live.
Yeah, it's fun. We have some
Interactive.
audience. If you have questions, drop them in the chat. If you're on Facebook watching and you have questions, comment them, and we'll have them relayed over to us.
Absolutely. 2021 has been an incredibly interesting year, starting in a pandemic. I was looking back, Phil, at what our first episode of 2021 was.
Right.
In January, and we were with Andrea Ferreira, who is a California Jumpstart board member with me. Actually, I joined them, and it was super educational because it was right in our bailiwick, right? It was
right.
We swing for the fences. It was right there for us because it was talking about education of finances with children and why we don't learn finances as kids. So we got started in 2021, right in our wheelhouse, so to speak.
Right. And it's something where, we had a lot of great episodes, a lot of great guests. So we wanted to, like every other podcast, take a look back and, see which ones are some of our favorites, see which ones are some of our most popular ones. I actually had that first one as one of my guesses for one of your favorites of the year.
Really?
Yeah.
I brought it up and I have to tell you, as a guest, she's one of my favorites. I mean, I have a soft spot for Andrea. I mean, she started that company and started that mission. And she's still on the California Jumpstart Foundation, the coalition, and she lives in New York now, starting off in California, but she lives there and still gives her time just because it's her passion. So I so much revere the work she does, the work that, we had a couple experts. The California Jumpstart Coalition is doing so much work to bring financial literacy to schools in California. That is the mission, is to educate our teachers and educate our students, for young people, because really that's where personal finance starts. It needs to start at that level, because every single person, whether they're going to go into being a doctor, or they're going to go into being an actor, or go into waste management. I mean, teacher, whatever it is, the one thing we all have in common is we're going to be paying for things. We're going to be earning a living and dealing with money, and eventually working towards a retirement. So all of these things need to be present in their education. We fully believe that, and that's what the foundation is working so hard to do. That's what the SDFLC tries to fill those gaps when we work with schools. So yeah, it was not on the level. She was one of my favorite guests, but it wasn't going to be one that I brought up today. But I did, because it was the first one of 2021, and it was at such a comfortable place when we were still in a pandemic. You and I were, doing these our podcast and doing our swim lives right here in our bedrooms and our home offices.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it was and we did all of it from, well, I moved around. I had a couple different places.
Literally moved around.
Literally moved. Exactly.
Yeah.
So 2021 was a crazy year. So I think let's start with some of our favorites.
All right,
And
get it started.
yeah, I think, let's see, Chase, what was your favorite episode to record? The one we had most fun with,
You know, well, the most
if you
fun
have it
with, so there's
categorized that way.
I have categories that are different reasons
Yeah.
that were my favorites, not just my favorite. But there was, our podcast is about, I mean, really, there's lighthearted episodes where we're literally talking about personal finance in the weirdest ways. And then there's the stuff that we're teaching, right? Stuff that is real valuable. And one of my favorites was the Office episode, when we talked about how the personal finances and what those different characters said about personal finance, and all their personalities came out in a financial way through all those different episodes that The Office did over the 7 or 8, 9 years that it was on the air. And Katie did such a good job of, and when she joined us for that episode. And I think my favorites were always when Katie joined us, just because she adds such a fun element to that. But that was super fun. And we did the same thing with Friends, which I really enjoyed.
I had that one on the list of my guesses for Chase's episodes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
we
that's
had a very
because my
special
son was on it.
guest. Yes, we had a very special guest for the Friends episode. So it was like, Office, Friends. And then I gave Friends the go because I think you mentioned it's one of your favorite shows. And we
Still
had
to
your
this
son
day.
on there. So I was like, he's got to pick the Friends episode.
Yeah, and Clay, being a part of that was kind of a proud parent time. I found out that he has now declared that he wants to go to the Syracuse University because he wants to go into broadcasting. So I think that he got the little bit of a bug wearing the headset and the microphone, and yeah, he enjoyed that. And so he loves to talk and he loves Friends. So you put those two things together, and it was really awesome.
That's great. Yeah, it's definitely it was funny for me. One of the first ones that I have that I really enjoyed, and I think I've mentioned it before. It's the econ one, not your grandparents' economics, with Dr. Jim Charkins. Yeah.
Yes, I knew
that was
it.
number 80. I really disliked economics when I had to take it in college. But that was different. His way of looking at it, his way of how he explaining how he teaches it to kids. And then it got me thinking, like, even the way I explain it, and I use I don't use economics on a daily basis when talking to my kid, but the opportunity
But you do,
cost.
though. You just don't know it. Right.
I do. And I always use the word opportunity cost, even when I'm dealing with my kid. So the way he kind of like, I was like, oh, that's pretty good. Consider it doing this way. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. It was like, even when I do the Dad's Core presentations, because when we do the Dad's Core presentations with, say, San Diego here in, it's a group of dads. And at the end, I'm like, hey, we also have a podcast. I always recommend, you should go listen to the econ one, because that's the one that's going to apply as parents, that you can kind of quickly turn around and use and incorporate into your everyday parenting type things.
Well, because he makes it so easy to understand. And it was,
right.
We named it Not Your Grandparents' Economics.
Right.
Because it's not what we learned. And it's really funny because Jim reminds us on the board when we have our quarterly meetings that economics and personal finance is just not the same as it was when we were younger, or shouldn't be. And the way that they're teaching it. So Jim, I knew it was going to be one of your favorites. You said that after we were done recording that. And he was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed that.
Yeah. I'm hoping, if, my wife signed up for an economics class, so I'm going to kind of like relearn it with her. I'm hoping I can kind of understand it now. We'll see.
Really?
Yeah.
She's taking that on, huh?
She's taking an econ class at Mesa. Yeah. So
okay,
we'll see.
Wait, we're gonna do this live. Why? What is the reason for it? What does she want to gain from it?
Take an econ class. It seems like
trying
a general
to improve
ed.
herself. I love it. That's fantastic. That's awesome. One of my other favorite ones that when we first interviewed her, I didn't know how we were going to tie in the fact that it was personal finance. But that's what's phenomenal. And we teach this all the time when we're doing presentations, and that economics and finance is all around us. We do it every day when we're goal setting, when we think about what we're going to do during our day, there's a financial component to everything that we do and all the decisions that we make, whether it's a decision that we know that we're making. Maybe it's subconscious, maybe it's conscious, but it is something that we are doing every day. And that was when we met with Nora Ali, and creating your own path. And
I had hers on my list also.
You do. She was so inspirational, the way that where she came from to where she is today, is growing up, with immigrant parents up in the Minnesota, and making her way to an Ivy League school, and living in New York, and creating that. I mean, to me, it was super inspirational. She was so down to earth when discussing it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something where, I had her on the list as well. And it was one of our two, I think, guests that have a Twitter check mark.
Yeah, she's pretty popular.
Yeah, and she might be our most popular guest ever. But it's something where she has that like new adventure that she still hasn't announced what it's going to be. But actually, she's on a new podcast, which is, I think it's called Business Casual. I've heard the commercial a couple times on Spotify.
Yeah.
So it's funny, you're listening to other podcasts and you're like, oh, we had her on our show.
I know. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think it was very inspirational. It was very, it was fun to interview her, and she probably can interview us much better than we could ever interview her.
Well,
but she made it seem like she was easy to talk to. She was very approachable, and she still interacts with us on Twitter.
Yeah, and I think it's just the fact that she set out to make a career for herself. It didn't make excuses for anything, and just went about taking the steps she needed to take to do what she wanted to do, and experiencing life and figuring out what that was. And she just happened to be very successful at a very early age, and be able to, the different steps that she took, I mean, are pretty phenomenal.
Right.
Because she's still very young.
Yeah, that was a good one. That's funny that I knew we'd eventually get at least one of ours to match up.
That didn't take very long.
I was thinking maybe two, but we'll see. Yeah, that was a fun one. You know which other one I had fun? There's a couple times, I mentioned social media. There's a couple times I saw things on social media where, as I was reading it, I said, oh, we're going to talk about this.
Number 96.
96. Yeah.
96.
Is that on your list as well?
It's on my list. Yes.
And we did compare lists, just to let everybody know.
It's the first time that we ever check marked the cuss words, that there was profanity. That's exactly. The only one. That's the only episode where we had
to remove them out. Yeah. And it's funny. We talked yesterday, but we said we're not sharing a list. Let's see what comes out of it and which episodes we pick. But yeah, 96 was definitely one of them. And so
let's give a background on it.
Yeah. So we saw a tweet initially from the Reddit, the subreddit, Am I the A-hole? And it was about it
says, Am I the A-hole?
Am I the A-hole?
Question mark.
People go on there, they post the story, and then people go on there and say, yes, you are, or no, you're not. And it was a gentleman posting about how he had gone on vacations with his girlfriend, didn't make as much money, him and his family a little are better off financially. And he basically just kind of let her starve her way and sit in the room through the whole vacation and not really pay for anything. Yeah. And then we just had a discussion on that. And I
expected her that she knew what she was getting into. And so I think we came down with the overall.
We came over out of the conclusion
that he was definitely an a-hole. Yeah. That he didn't handle that very well.
No, I don't think he did. And it's
no compassion at all.
No, right. And just like the human element of it. And that's something with personal finances. It's important to remember there is a human element to it. You have to put feelings into it. It's not just about the money signs, and it's not just about counting dollars. And that's something I come across sometimes on like social media and things like that, where someone's sitting there on social media who is always, saying, oh, I'm doing so well, I got this investment, that investment. And they're wondering if they should go shell out the money for like new tires, or if they should try and ride them out a little longer. And it's sitting there, it's like, there's some things that you probably just, it's okay to spend the money. It's a good thing to spend the money.
Or
You
for
don't
your
want-
safety.
For your safety, right?
You need to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's something, especially if you have the money, go spend the money. It's okay to spend money sometimes, especially if it's within your financial capabilities. So that tweet, when I was reading it initially, I was like, ooh, who do I tell?
Well, the whole point is that you're supposedly, he's in love with this girl and he invites her to go on this great vacation with his family. And he knows her situation financially. Right. So if you're going to do that, any self-respecting guy or even gal, if they were flipped, they're going to pick up the slack and want you to enjoy the vacation.
You would hope so.
You pay what you can and I'll take care of the rest.
Right.
That made no sense to me.
Or tone down the vacation.
Or you just don't invite her in that and just say, hey, this is a family thing that we've got going on. Yeah. But at least communicate. That's obviously a very big topic of conversation with personal finance. And if you're in relationships, is to communicate about it. You have to. It's imperative.
Yeah, it's definitely something where we have a question. Cool. It's definitely something where that communication. Yeah. Question from Facebook. Since doing the podcast, do you get more money questions from friends and family?
Yeah, quite a bit, actually. Quite a bit. And so a lot of times it depends on how personal it gets, how I answer or how involved it is. But a lot of times I will refer our friend, if it's especially somebody that's a little bit younger and it's about investing and that kind of thing, we do refer to our buddy Paul Lim and friends like that. But yeah, I do answer quite a bit. And usually they're pretty just simple,
generic. How
do you handle this in this situation?
Yeah, I think it's funny because it's not like my friends and family.
I can tell you that.
I was gonna say, it's not like my wife and not my wife, my family and friends didn't know that I was doing personal finance before this. I've been doing it for a long time, so they know what I do. But just being on a podcast, I think does make it where it's like, oh, now you're an expert. Like now I'm an expert. I've been doing this for over a decade.
So you're kind of like Chandler with all your friends from Friends. He's friends with him, and like, they just never knew exactly what he did.
Exactly. All of a sudden, they find me on Spotify or iPad or on Spotify, Pandora, or the Apple Podcast, and then now I'm an expert. So yes, I do believe that since doing the podcast, I think I also pop up higher on a Google search than I used to. Since being on the podcast. Exactly.
You're famous. What are you going to do?
I mean, I still don't have that check mark on Instagram or Twitter. Twitter, if you're listening, get us a SDFLC at least needs a check mark. But I think
soon we're going to have to change it to the real Felipe Arevalo.
Exactly. So I think it's definitely increased a little. Great question though. Love the question. Any others, Chase, that you want to go over that you have?
Yeah, I mean, there was, again, the pandemic was an interesting year, 2020. I didn't think 2020 could get any crazier. Like I remember my wife and I saying we couldn't get out of 2020 fast enough. Right? And I think we all kind of felt that way. And yet 2021 started off with Andrea, but there was I think probably my favorite episode the entire time. And for whatever reason, it resonated with listeners too, because it's by far our top listened to podcast.
I knew this one would be on our top.
It is, because it was so personal between you and I. And it's the first time we introduced our better halves to our listeners and it was such a real discussion because it was vulnerable. It was us talking about, and the name of it was episode 71. We did it in early February or late January. I can't remember which one it was.
Late January
offhand, but it was roses are red, violets are blue, and Valentine's Day on a budget is great too, or something like that. And so my wife Carrie and your wife Sarah sat down with us and just discussed, how we handle a day like Valentine's Day and that time of year, and how differently unique it can be with each and every couple there is out there. And for whatever reason, I mean, it seems to be our top listened to every month,
Every
even
month.
though it's a year old now.
Right. It is by far our most popular episode.
It was so funny how honest our wives were, and
I
how
know.
quickly they threw us under the bus.
It
What they really
happens.
didn't like, what they did
Exactly.
like. It was like,
And we kind of expected it going
yes, we did.
in.
There's no doubt.
I knew I was going to get a little burn there. But it's something where it was fun to record, and apparently the audience loves it. Everyone keeps listening to it. Like you
Yeah.
said, long after Valentine's Day, every month it seems to be our most popular episode.
It really is.
Even as we've had other popular ones, that one just kind of is always right there. So yeah, I think that one was definitely a fun one to record. My
Well, I
wife
think
Sarah,
it's because it was very real life, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's relatable.
yeah. Sarah always tells me, I tell her like, hey, you still have the top episode. And she's like, because we did in season 1, it wasn't this year, but in season 1, we had her on for a cost of baby, which is still in our
Because you guys
top.
had just had a baby at the
Yeah,
time.
which is still at the top 5. So she likes to remind me that 2 of our top 5 episodes.
That's
she
still,
was
and
on.
that episode still holds true. I mean, it's
Right.
a really good episode.
So she was giving me a hard time about that when I was telling her which episodes were doing good. But it was such a fun episode, the Valentine's Day one, and it was real. It applied to personal finances and so many things that go along with holidays like Valentine's Day. Not just Valentine's Day, but there's so many other holidays
that are
that
similar.
kind of similar idea. So
Birthdays, the
so I
whole
think
thing.
that one was definitely a fun one for me as well. That was definitely on my list.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I went back and listened to it again prior to this episode, and I got a little weepy actually, because at that time, Carrie probably had colon cancer and we hadn't known it yet. And it was 3 months later, in May, that 2021 became crazier for the Peckham family and worse for the Peckham family than the prior 4 years. And I didn't think that that was possible. But my wife, Carrie, was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer, which I had brought up in one of our episodes. And when we were talking about dealing with money, when it comes to medical issues in the medical field, health. But so, yeah, it really kind of cast a new light for me, that, nobody in life really avoids turmoil in some way. And we talk a lot in our presentations and our workshops, and this podcast. It comes up over and over again that we try to create a roadmap for ourselves financially, and try to create a roadmap for ourselves for our futures. No matter where we are in life, that roadmap is kind of our budget, right? It's something that we work off of. And there's going to be bumps in the road. There's going to be hills and valleys, and whatever other cliche you want to put on that. There's going to be, as soon and as much as we talk about planning, as much as we say that how important planning is, because it absolutely is, it doesn't mean it's always going to go according to plan, if that makes sense. And
Right.
You have to be adaptable. And when you get something like a cancer diagnosis, that's not something any of us expect. That's not something any of us think is going to happen to me or happen to us,
Right.
even though it happens to millions of people around the world.
Right.
And there, the one thing that I have to say that, through all of this, that the community, through the podcast, but our office, our colleagues, our friends and family have been just unbelievable to Carrie and I through this. The amount of support, I can't imagine getting through these last 7 months as Carrie has gone through chemo and trying to figure out how, we're going to best navigate this to beat it ultimately is our goal. But, so many things go through your mind when you get a diagnosis like this, when you have at the time a just turned 11-year-old and just turned 13-year-old, which they still are, and you think you've got so much life left to live, and what am I going to do as a single father, or how am I going to how are my kids going to, all those bad things that go through your mind. With community and this podcast helped a lot, is realizing that, it's a bump in the road, but medicine is an amazing thing that there are many people that there was never why us. Maybe for 2 days, I think, when she was in the hospital and, when my head was spinning, I think I did that for a little bit, but then it was, put on our boots, put on our pants and say, millions of people go through this and millions of people beat it. And that we can do that. But it's not easy without community. So like with people like yourself and Katie and Mike and Michelle and Carlos and the group at DebtWave and San Diego Financial Literacy Center and our incredible community, we wouldn't be where we are today without all of you and our listeners as well. I mean, this podcast and the job that we do, the work that we do every single day in trying to educate. I mean, what we do is sometimes it's maddening because you feel like, are we really getting through to people? And then we find out, that we are, we're reaching the underserved, we're reaching our service members, and that matters a lot. And that we'll come out of this on top. And so, not to get too heavy and get into it, but it really made our these podcasts, you take it to heart because we preach a lot of things, and then but you have to live it. You have to walk the walk. And sometimes one thing that we've all learned, though, that as tough as life is wonderful. That we're all very, 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 very lucky to get our opportunity to walk this earth and be with other people. So
it's something where you like you mentioned, you got to take your shots and just move forward. You guys have been doing a great job of staying positive, following her story and everything. So keep up the good work.
Yeah, she started. The podcast is going to drop pretty soon, but she's been writing a blog forever. You can follow her if you're interested. And she was very, very hard for her to know whether she was going to come out publicly or not. But she's been writing a blog called Time is Money Mom for years. And she's, I married way, way, way up. I'm very blessed that I have somebody like her because she's an incredible writer, an incredibly successful professional, and yet an incredible wife and mom, and great friend to many people. But it's called Time is Money Mom. You can follow her on Facebook and Instagram. She's really loves those stories. And then she's going to be a new podcast of the same title, Time is Money Mom, is going to be dropping here in the next month. So if you want to follow her road, because she documents everything from the chemo, the good, the bad, the ugly. And it's been healing for her and us.
Yeah. Any other episode you could think of?
Yeah. There are a few. I had a hard time.
I did.
Picking.
I had one other one that I really enjoyed recording, and it was ETFs, understanding ETFs with Kyle Woodley from Kiplinger, and not just because he's a soccer fan, although as you know,
that helps.
I'm a big soccer fan. That does help. The San Diego soccer world is kind of buzzing right now too. So if you're a San Diego fan, Alex Morgan coming to San Diego for the Wave is exciting. Welcome, for soccer fans. Exactly. Like a bona fide superstar.
My daughter's going nuts.
I'm a big fan. Following the women's national team and everything and all their successes. It's like cool to have. It's cool when your team brings like big talent. We have Tatis, we have Machado at the Padres, and now we have Alex Morgan, who's more popular than
Jake
both
Cronenworth.
of them. Yeah, he's homegrown. He's younger.
So is Tatis.
Tatis has had that hype though.
Yeah,
as he's come up through the minor leagues.
Well-deserved hype.
Yeah. So it was fun to talk to him about ETFs and investing and just kind of how people can get started and how you can remove the barriers where it's like, do I do an ETF? Do I do a mutual fund? Oh, I can't make up my mind. I'm just not going to do either. And he was saying like, it doesn't matter. Just pick one. Just get to investing, get to saving, get to doing things. And you can buy little fractions and you can start with small amounts of money I thought that was very interesting and very, especially with the young people that we talk to, excuse me, students who don't have a lot of money, but they have that urge to get involved, to get
For
started,
sure.
to get investing.
Knowledge is power. Another cliche I'm throwing out there
They
again,
could
but it is
start,
true.
they could start with $5. They could start with $20 and just as long as it's constant. And then you hear terms though, like ETFs and mutual funds. And if you don't not into investing, you're like, I don't even know what all that stuff is, but he really broke it down. And he was one of our other Twitter checkmark people for guests as well. So it was a fun one, and I really enjoyed that one as
Yeah, it's
well.
been fun. One thing I've learned that through this whole thing, there's so many smart people out there with just incredibly interesting stories, self-made. One of my favorites, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, how to buy a car is really, that's a presentation we do a lot,
Right.
especially for young people
The
and the
community
steps that
college.
you need to take. And Sharon Glassy, who is an attorney here in consumer protection attorney here in San Diego, practicing in California, obviously, but just the different insights that she gave us talking about
I learned a lot that episode.
Right, what our rights are as consumers when you buy a vehicle, and what you can say, what you should say yes to, and what is just absolute junk, and all the upselling that they try to do when you're going through that whole process. It was just it was, I loved it. And if you haven't heard that one, it's episode number 75. Sharon was so nervous to do it too, and she was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, that was one of the episodes where it was like, man, I learned a lot when you finish recording and you realize like I there's a lot that I learned in this.
We thought we knew everything.
I thought I knew car buying. And then you sit down and you talk and you're like, oh wow, I maybe I didn't know as much as I thought I did, which is a dangerous place to be when you think you know everything, but you really don't. So it's always good, and that's something where when people go car shopping now, like friends or whatever, like you should go listen to this podcast episode. I'm not trying to just get listens and downloads, but this could be really useful information that you could save you.
Well, I'll give you a quick one.
Make a car purchase.
A friend of mine or people that I know who listen to this episode or happen to know Sharon, and they called me and they said, after the episode, we were going to go buy a new car. They took Sharon with them.
That's funny.
And she sat there with them, and as the guy is trying to sell him the car and do the paperwork and everything, she just sat there and went, nope, 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 that's illegal. Nope, nope. And finally the guy's just like, okay, look, whatever, you just tell us what you need. Because she just was like, she probably saved them about $8 or $9 grand on the car by the time they were all said and done, of things they might have said yes to.
Yeah.
So pretty interesting stuff. But I thank you again, Sharon, for joining us. And that was a really great, that learned a ton in that.
Yeah. It's been a fun one. You have any others on your list? I think we covered all the ones on.
Yeah,
on my list
we covered them.
initially.
I think bottom line is I'm excited for 2022. I'm excited for the 2021 holidays. A week, next week, I'll be taking the rest of the time off. We're going to take a little hiatus, about a 2-week hiatus on the podcast. Give you guys all a chance to catch up on the 112 episodes that we have out there. If you haven't heard any.
Yeah, we're not putting out episodes on Christmas or New Year's Eve.
Right. We won't have our swim lives until the new year as well, which I really love doing those in 2021. I thought that that those became much more popular. So and I think we've, in fact, people that are here live right now have been on a few of those swim lives. So thank you to those people that have been joining us in Facebook.
Yeah. If any of you have questions too on Facebook or here on Zoom, feel free to drop them in the chat. But I think we have some guests lined up for January. We've already scheduled some recordings
like crazy.
So it'll be fun. We'll have some some fun guests along the way, some returning guests, and some
really interesting to see how many people reach out to us too that want to get on our podcast.
Some of them
had to turn down
far more. Some of them have been like, oh yes, you want to be on our show, and then other ones are like, what is it that you do?
Yeah. What are you trying to push?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So someone said on Facebook, Chase, not a question, but thank you for an amazing show.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thanks very much. We enjoy doing it. Phil and I think we can tell you, and I know that Katie, we enjoy what we do. And we work with good people. The pandemic has been difficult for everybody for many different reasons.
It's
But
quite the shift.
it's
and
something we all
change.
shared together though, right?
Yeah.
And as of the day we're recording this, California has mandated an indoor mask again, even if you're vaccinated. So I don't think it was unexpected that the winter season would kind of cause an uptick again. But still, it just, I think we all yearn for this sucker to go away.
It's funny. It seems like it was so long ago. We were sitting in the office and I'd sit in my little cubicle in the corner next to Katie and we would chit chat and people would come over like, are you talking to yourself? No, I'm talking to Katie. There's a divider. So we just talk over it. And Katie and I would sit there and talk about all kinds of random things and someday being home buyers and doing all this stuff. And it's been so long in 2021, brought on some of those.
Both of you are
big
homeowners now.
changes.
So congratulations to
know.
both of you. That's
Yeah,
phenomenal.
so congratulations, Katie. Congratulations, me, I guess. But it's something where, it was the year was just, you'd have told me when we left the office back in 2020 that it was going to be like, oh, you'll be working from home and 2021 and you'll be recording from home and you'll actually own a home. It's just been, it's been a crazy one.
Yeah, it really has. And I as much as I was looking forward to 2021, boy, I'm looking forward to 2022 a lot more.
Same.
And while I'm there, I'd like to thank our doctors at Scripps, all the great nurses that have worked with Carrie through her chemo, and the new doctors and team that we have at UCSD now. And that we will update in this podcast as we go through. But I look forward to the SDFLC and working in our communities. We did book in-person workshops for 2022. So looking forward to that again, to literally going down and meeting with people in person and seeing those faces. That's something I look forward to.
And we continue our virtual ones all across the country.
And, as we go into this, we wish everybody an incredible happy holidays. If you went through Hanukkah already, happy Hanukkah. And if you listen to this show, if you like this show, please spread the word. Like us, follow us, send it out there. I'd like to thank whoever it was that liked us in Sacramento, that was sending out some very positive vibes on us to listen. Was very, very nice last week, but we could use more of that and pass the word. We look forward to an ongoing and fun 2022. Let's hope it's a lot less stressful for many different reasons, and health and prosperity to everyone over this holiday season.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. We had fun. Hope you did as well. And come back in January.
Yeah, we'll see you in 2022.